Welcome to this interactive Screenbook course on HTML. In this introduction, I'm going to explain the role of HTML on the internet and why it is so important. What is HTML? It is the standard markup language for creating web pages and web applications. Along with CSS and JavaScript, it is one of the cornerstones of the World Wide Web. Every website and every web application will render HTML to the browser. Let me explain how the web works in essence. Once you have developed a website, you need to host it on a server to make it accessible to the World Wide Web. The server says, here's my number, call me maybe. That is what we call an IP address. And often we put a domain name over that IP address so that it is easy to remember. When you type that domain name on the browser will then give the server a call, and then the server will send the hosted files back to the browser to be rendered. Your browser will first load the HTML, which may reference other CSS files and JavaScript files, and will load those references in the order that they are listed in the HTML from top to bottom. So CSS and JavaScript is built on top of HTML elements like skin on bones. Think of HTML as the skeleton. HTML provides tags to name different types of content, or rather elements, on your website. For example, the header element, the links, styles, etc. This helps your browser understand what it reads to render it properly. Even though the browser only needs HTML to render a website, think of it as a skeleton with bare contents that you will then make it dynamic and more beautiful using JavaScript and CSS. You can think of JavaScript as the brains of your website or web application. It can modify the HTML and CSS and re-render elements of the page based on user input or logic or changes in data from a server. This makes your HTML dynamic rather than static. A dynamic website behaves more like this. After the page is rendered, the user can interact with inputs and elements on the page and trigger JavaScript functions, which can modify the HTML elements and contents, the CSS, and send or fetch data to and from the server, which then gets sent back to the browser to be re-rendered. Games and interactive applications can be built upon HTML thanks to JavaScript. However, without rendered HTML elements, JavaScript and CSS will have no visible usefulness on the browser. You can think of CSS like the skin of the website. CSS allows us to enhance the user experience for visitors, design a user interface, implement a brand identity, apply typographic and visual design principles, make the site responsive for mobile and desktop viewing alike, and overall a more enjoyable experience to look at and use. Now, regardless of whether you are looking to be a designer of websites and web applications or a more full stack developer of web applications, a thorough understanding of HTML is a must. And hopefully after this course, you will have HTML in your pocket. In this course, I'll share with you the boilerplate tags and declarations that you'll need on every project. We'll practice element nesting and indentation. We'll learn how to use layout elements semantically or properly, learn how to use metadata, link scripts, and style elements. We will use attributes, IDs, classes along the way. We'll learn how to embed images, video, and audio. We'll also practice using text formatting elements. We'll learn how to make a numbered or bulleted list of items. And to wrap things up, we'll learn about forms and tables. As a result, we're going to build a project using the most useful elements and best practices of HTML5. I will provide you with CSS and JavaScript to make learning HTML more visually enjoyable and fun.